This woman to Arkansas. In the poor Mississippi Delta region where I saw poverty in its extremes, I found my heart led by issue-based campaigning. It's okay to get somebody elected, it's okay to work on a campaign, but when that campaign's over, it's over. On an issue, if we're going to organize around issues, we've really found a way to change people's lives. So when I came back from Arkansas, I started something called Team Rural. Team Rural was founded to give folks in the rural areas a support network because I found that peer pressure from their church, peer pressure from their job, peer pressure from their relatives were like a doe in the headlight. It would just stop them from doing anything democratic, anything liberal, anything progressive, and yet they're here. I call them closet Democrats, and they're here, believe me. So after the midterms, I was called the one sunny spot in Florida. And I'm not bragging on myself, but I just want to tell you, I know what I'm doing and what I'm about. And what we've done here is start something called the Redneck Party. Now, the reason that we're here is because I told a story. I've been talking all my life. I've been talking about my grandfather. I've been talking about Earl O'Neill and his daddy named Charles O'Neill. They was growed up in Cabin Creek, West Virginia. And my grandfather was talking to me one day, and he asked me what did I think about a child growing up in this country that had to hit his belly when he heard the train coming because they were shooting from the train and shooting at the tents, at the striking coal miners, shooting at the children and the women and the men. What did I think about that? And I said I didn't think that happened. I couldn't believe that happened. My grandfather cursed me. My grandfather was so angry at me, the tears welled up in his eyes. And at that time I realized he was telling me something that was his truth. It was his story. It was his knowledge. And I apologized to him. See, I was always the kid that sat on the porch. You know, you'd want to run them kids off to play. Well, I was always the one you sit around with the old folks and listen and talk and like to listen. I used to just like to be up under them and hear their stories. And so after that initial story about the train coming on the track with the Gatling gun mounted in there, I started listening to Grandfather's stories. He told me stories about people who might have got injured in the mine and how they would go up to a door and they wouldn't have a ball bat. He called it a club, like a billy club. It was a little bit fatter than a policeman's bandana baton. I asked him to describe it to me. Wouldn't. And he said they would rap on the door. They were called shack rousters. And what they would do was come in there and lop you upside your head. Get up, you got to get to work. If you was sick, your wife went to the door, they're coming in. You are out. If you're not up and going to work, you're out. Grandfather said when the unions came into the Cabin Creek and Paint Creek, these folks did not know much about organizing. They didn't know what a union was. They didn't know what labor was. But what they understood was that they had an enemy that did not care a bit about widows whose husbands died in the mine, people who were sick and couldn't go to work, or my great uncle who had a coal slag fall on him and injured him where he couldn't walk. See, back then you didn't have unemployment insurance. You didn't have sick day leave. You didn't have an 8-hour work day. You didn't have nobody championing for you. And what they found out, what we're doing here today, is a free assembly. Now, in this year, 2011, we're having the right to a free assembly. But back when Grandfather was a child, there was no right to a free assembly. That was just 90 years ago, folks. There was no ability for them to collectively bargain.